It is a Thursday morning in Northeast Ohio, and it's time for the Bullpen with Adam the Bull. Yes, indeed, a lot to get to on today's show, and I've got plenty to say and to do. We'll look around the NFL. We will talk about the Cleveland Guardians, and I'll share some personal stories with you as well on today's edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Podcast is not for the faint of heart.
And I do think it's time for the Browns to move on.
It's not for those who ride the fence.
He's proven nothing.
But if you're looking for someone who tells it like it is about Cleveland sports,
everybody does fandom their way.
You've come to the right place.
I don't think he's any good.
It's time for the Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Yes, indeed. It is time for the Bullpen with Adam the Bull. A lot to get to on today's show. We begin with football. 8 weeks from today, if you are listening / watching this podcast on the day I did it, which is Thursday, July 14th, it is 8 weeks exactly from today when the NFL season begins with the Thursday night opener. And I know if you're like me, you cannot wait. Let's go. Let's get it on. Obviously, the Browns will play that Sunday in Carolina as of now at 1 p.m. on CBS, although it wouldn't shock me if they ended up moving that game. I don't know if they can move the times on the week one games. I'm not sure about that, but they should. But 8 weeks from today, the defending Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams will play host to the Buffalo Bills. The game on NBC at 8:20 p.m. Coincidentally enough, I guess it's not. I don't know if it's coincidentally, but I'm starting to record this podcast at 8:20 a.m. 8 weeks before. But anyway, well, technically it's 8:24 that I'm starting this podcast. But that should be a great game. A lot of really good games on the week one schedule. And it felt like it was going to be forever till the NFL season comes. But now we are 2 weeks away from training camp. We are 3 weeks away from preseason, and we are 8 weeks away from what matters the most, what we all can't wait for more than anything else, and that's the start of the NFL season. I mentioned Buffalo and the Rams. We know the Browns play Carolina. The other games for the division teams in the AFC North, the Steelers and Bengals will play week one in Cincinnati. That game is also, as of now, at 1 o'clock, and the Ravens will play in New Jersey against the Jets. That is also a 1 o'clock game. The Sunday night game that week, Tampa Bay at Dallas. The Monday night game that week is Denver at Seattle. If you're a fantasy football player, as I am, I'm in at least 4 leagues. In fact, including we're putting together a Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show fantasy football league that some of you fans may be able to get involved with. Stay tuned for that coming up. We'll have some information on that during the podcast. We'll have some information on that on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show coming up over, I'd say, the next couple of weeks on how you might be able to get involved. We're still working out the details on that, but we've been talking about it a lot lately off the air, and I'm excited to share that with you. Some of you may be able to compete with us in the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show Fantasy Football League. I love fantasy football. I'm starting to, some people prepare all off season. I do. I'm in one league that's a keeper league, and we have contracts, and it's very complicated, so I got to stay on top of that. But in terms of, drafting for a more traditional redraft fantasy football league, I wait on my prep. I like it to all be fresh in my brain when we draft, and I don't draft till the days before the season. I don't understand some of these fantasy leagues, they draft in July and even early August. I'm like, guys can get hurt. I don't mess around with that. I don't do any of my drafts until after the preseason is over. I don't mess around. But in terms of actual football, and it's funny, I have to say actual football. It used to be, I feel like when I first started talking about, and I've been playing fantasy football forever. Like I started, the first fantasy sports I did at the time, we called it rotisserie, was baseball. I founded a fantasy baseball league with a few other guys in 1991. And then we probably started playing fantasy football, I would say I can't remember the exact year on that one, but maybe 97, 98. So I've been doing it forever. And obviously it was such a niche thing, and, it wasn't talked about publicly. First of all, in the 90s, it wasn't like the sports radio options and sports TV options that there are now, but it wasn't talked about. And even until recently, and now it's blown up. There's a fantasy sports channel on Sirius XM, and And everybody, so many fans play fantasy football, especially baseball, not as much. It started as more of a baseball thing, but obviously, like everything else, football has completely taken over. And there's others. I started playing fantasy basketball again this year for the first time in a long time. But fantasy football is where it's at. In terms, excuse me, need a little water here. In terms of actual football on the field, yesterday I broke down the Browns roster and where they stand from a personnel standpoint and my expectations for this team of how good they're going to be. Now, I didn't predict how many wins they're going to have. It's obviously hard to do until we get the resolution to the quarterback situation. As of now, we are in a waiting game. The briefs were due in this case by Tuesday. I know Mike Florio's speculating that the week of the 25th, which is the week the training camp starts, is going to be the week the decision's going to be made. I still think that Judge Robinson, I think we've learned that she is going to take whatever time is necessary, and I think that's important. I know we all want a resolution to the situation, especially here in Cleveland, where it's going to be a huge factor as to whether or not the Browns can make the playoffs or potentially win a Super Bowl. But ultimately, as I've said many times, and I've said it many times recently because I didn't realize at the time they hired Sue Robinson that she and they would, well, not they, but she would take this so seriously. She is treating this as a court proceeding. This is not a joke, and this is why both myself and G. Bush have said recently, what she says should stand. Good or bad for the Browns, good or bad for the league, good or bad for Watson. She's an independent arbiter. She's obviously taking this extremely seriously. So to continue to guess when she's going to make a decision, none of us know. Anybody reporting right now how many games it's going to be, that they've heard this or that, they are full of baloney. Don't believe any of that. Even if they get lucky and they got it right with a guess, none of that's true. There's no way somebody's leaking what's out there because she's making the decision ultimately. Now, again, the league can overstep her if they want, which would be really poor, and I would hope they don't do it, and I think they won't, but obviously I don't know because the league tends to do whatever it wants. But the league would look so stupid if she came up with, say, a 4-game suspension. I don't know that she will. I'm just throwing that number out there. And then they say, well, we're going to ignore the whole process that you took seriously, that you were thoughtful with, that you spent months and months of time doing. You know more than anybody else that can make an independent decision here. But we're going to say, no, screw this whole process. We're going to suspend you for the year. That wouldn't make sense. Vice versa, too. I think what she says should stand. We'll see. But I think we've learned here that she's not on the NFL calendar schedule. It may turn out that way, that she makes the decision by then, but I think that will only be coincidental. This idea that she's on some sort of NFL timeline, which I think a lot of us thought was the case, is clearly not the case. And so I say we have to be patient because we're just sick of hearing about it potentially. Although every time we talk about it, there's more and more people interested in listening and seeing us talk about it, me or the other guys. But they don't care about our patience, and we have nothing to do with this. Ultimately, we are just fans. We are observers. We are outside entities. Really, this is only about Deshaun Watson. It's certainly about the women too, but her decision won't affect the women. I mean, she's not deciding anything in terms of jail time, which obviously is not happening, or in terms of, a lawsuit. That's not her job is to decide what is a fair punishment based on the rules, based on the evidence. And her decision is the only one that matters, and it truly, really only affects Deshaun Watson and his career and his money, I guess. But the rest of us, we just have to be. We have no choice but to be patient. And really, we have no right to say, well, this is unfair. Listen, this is what we signed up for when we traded for Deshaun Watson. We knew that there was going to be unknowns. I think we all thought it would be settled by now. I know I certainly did. But I think we have to appreciate the fact that this judge, this woman, is taking this, is not treating this as a joke, is not, reacting emotionally as the people from the league have in the past when it comes to suspensions. She is looking at the facts. She is looking at the evidence. She is looking at the rules of the league and and what, if any, rules he may have violated, and she's going to come up with a decision based on that. I trust her impartiality, and I think most people do at this point. And I think whatever her punishment is, from 0 games to 2 years, or more likely somewhere in between, I'm going to be okay with it. I believe I will. All right, a lot to get to. I want to talk more on the field football, and I have some more thoughts, even though I didn't pick the Browns' record, of the division and the AFC as a whole and the challenge of it. Obviously, it'll be a little easier to do once we do know the resolution, but we're going to do the best we can for now. I have some personal stuff I want to talk about in terms of the weight loss thing we've been doing on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. I want to get to the Guardians, who lost again last night, as we have now 4 games to go before the All-Star break. So a lot to get to. But first, folks, I want to talk to you about this. From the people who invented Healthy and Tasty comes the latest gift to your taste buds. You've probably tried the amazing Coconut Brownie Chunk Built Bar. But guess what? Your friends at Built have given Coconut Brownie Chunk the Puffs treatment. That's right. The Coconut Brownie Chunk Built Bar flavor you love in a deliciously chewy marshmallow covered in 100% real chocolate. It's like a fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. But stop drooling and listen. They are good for you. Low calorie, low sugar, high protein, and all delicious. Delicious coconut, rich sweet brownie, creamy marshmallow. Stop fantasizing. Get to Built.com to order your box of chocolate brownie chunk Built Puffs right now. Go to Built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. I just spit. I spit. Use promo code LOCKED15. Built.com. I'm so excited about the Built Bar that I'm spitting all over my microphone. Let's go. Built Bar. They're the best. All right, we are back. And I want to get more into the NFL. I'm so excited about this upcoming season. I know that you all are excited, but it's nervous anticipation. Last year, the Browns finished 8-9 with a quarterback that played terrible football. And what we saw from this team is they were able to pull out wins, even with bad quarterback play, almost all year, because they ran the ball well, and in the second half of the year, they played excellent defense for the most part. Defense was not very good early in the season. They picked it up in the second half, and if they can get some decent production at the defensive tackle position, and if they can stay relatively healthy, which you could say for any team, although the Browns' secondary, a very talented secondary in particular, has been particularly injury-prone, if those things happen, we've talked about it. The defense and the running game should be enough to carry the Browns through 4, 6, or even an 8-game suspension. Beyond that, the Browns probably don't make the playoffs. Even an 8-game suspension makes it very tough. The problem is, in the AFC, there are so many good teams. The Chiefs, the Raiders, the Titans, the Bengals, the Bills, and the Patriots all won double-digit games last year. The Chargers won 9, and they got an excellent quarterback. The Broncos won 7, and they added Russell Wilson. The Dolphins have upgraded their talent. They won 9 last year as well. The Steelers won 9 last year. I'm not sure that they've gotten much better. We shall see. I've been down on the Steelers for 2 years. I was shocked they were over 500 last year. Mike Tomlin is a hell of a coach, but they got outscored by 55 points last year. Oh, the Raiders got the Raiders, the Steelers, and the Dolphins all were outscored last year, even though they had winning records. Browns were outscored as well. Finished a game under 500. I mean, in the AFC is so tough. We know the Jaguars are terrible, although they have a young quarterback that if he's coached right should be good eventually. We know the Texans are terrible. The Jets are probably still terrible. I'm not a believer in Zach Wilson. I know a lot of people like him more because he slept with his mom's friend. Some people are excited about that. I think sleeping with your mom's best friend is pretty low, but, whatever. I'm 51. I think the Patriots are going to go backwards this year. I think the Steelers are going to go backwards this year. I don't think the Colts are an over 500 team, even though I love Jonathan Taylor. I think Matt Ryan is pretty much shot. But The Broncos will be better. The Chargers should be better. The Raiders, who are 10-7, they're still, the whole AFC West is excellent. The Ravens will be better. Remember they were 8-3 last year and lost their last 6 games. Lamar Jackson was hurt. He didn't play well when he was on the field. He needs to be better. I think this little fight he had with Bernard Pollard, the former Ravens defensive player, on Twitter, I don't like that for Lamar. And I've been critical of Baker when he's been too rabbit ears and too sensitive, and certainly Baker's been very sensitive, more than Lamar. Now, you could argue Aaron Rodgers is too sensitive with criticism, or has been sensitive to criticism. He's had a great career, but he didn't really react that much until he was, a Super Bowl champion. The reality is he probably should have another Super Bowl by now. He's been a huge disappointment in the postseason for the past decade. But I was a little I love watching Lamar Jackson play. I think he's going to bounce back and have a good season this year. But it is fair to be critical of Lamar Jackson. Bernard Pollard said something I just said yesterday on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, that right now it seems like the top receivers don't want to play with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson isn't. Again, when we went over, I don't want to. I talked about this yesterday, so I'm just going to for another minute. When he was not listed, coaches, executives, scouts, front office came up with a top 10 list of quarterbacks, and Lamar Jackson didn't make it on. Which, fine, it's opinion ultimately. It's an educated opinion, but it's an opinion. We could disagree. I see some guys on that list or the running back list or the wide receiver list that I disagree with, and that's fine. But the reaction to Lamar Jackson not being on the top 10 list to me was just stunning. Like, some people were so personally offended by it. I just don't get it. I think Lamar Jackson is a very good quarterback, but I don't think he's a top 10. And it's not like a no-brainer. At best, he's a lower-level top 10. I mean, you could make an argument for him. Again, I'm going to go back to that article because I want to see. I can't remember now off the top of my head who was a top 10 ahead of him. I think Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson with some of the other guys. I would take all those guys over Lamar Jackson. I would. And I love watching, as much as I hate the Ravens, I love watching Lamar Jackson play. But he's got a lot to prove. Now, Deshaun Watson's got stuff to prove in the postseason, too. We know that. I mean, he's won one playoff game, same as Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, so I get it. But, I mean, you watch Deshaun Watson's all-around skill set versus Lamar Jackson. I don't think it's that close between the two. And maybe it will be going forward. I got no problem if I'm the Ravens. And Bernard Pollard, who he got mad at for saying, hey, guys, wide receivers haven't wanted to play with him. He doesn't think any great wide receiver is going to go to Baltimore. Hollywood Brown, their best wide receiver, was not great, but decent wide receiver, wanted out. Now, he said it wasn't because of Lamar, it's because of the offense. Well, as was pointed out in Florio's article, and he's right, I mean, Lamar is the offense. And that's fine. I do think Lamar's going to bounce back or he's likely to bounce back in the 2022 season. But he's gone backwards since winning his MVP in 2019. Nobody can deny that. Then maybe you say it couldn't be better than that, but if that's the best, it's not good enough. So I think he's really good. I do think he'll have a good season this year, and if he does, then I'd pay him. But I don't think the Ravens are doing anything wrong. And I don't know. Who knows? If people are making it seem as if the Ravens don't want to pay him, I don't know that. It seems like the Ravens have been interested in talk. I don't know. He's representing himself, which seems like a mistake not to have an agent for a negotiation of this magnitude. But anyway, I've gone on such a tangent on Lamar Jackson because I'm just not understanding why there's so anger. Like, if people don't think Lamar Jackson... I get it. When he came out of college, you had Bill Polian. This is what it's all about, ultimately. So Bill Polian, when he came out of college, for those who don't know, said he should be a wide receiver. Obviously, there's racist overtones to that. Even if it's subconsciously, it's like, oh, this guy's a runner. And, he's not a wide receiver. That was stupid at the time that Bill Polian said it. It's stupid at the time. And now, if anybody still thinks it, Lamar Jackson is a starting quarterback in the NFL. He's a good starting quarterback in the NFL. He's really good. But saying he's not top 10 or that there are flaws in his game, which there are, is not an insult. It's reality. Doesn't mean those things can't be corrected. He needs to get better. Does anybody think he was good enough last year? He was lousy. And I know he was hurt, but so was Baker. And he was lousy too, and I never gave Baker a pass, and I don't give passes for injury. If you're on the field, you're expected to perform. It's that simple. All right, but in terms of the AFC, it's going to be hard. I mean, I hate to say this because, I believe that Deshaun Watson is one of 7 or 8 quarterbacks that really give you a good chance to win a Super Bowl. But there's a lot of those guys right now. And even if Deshaun Watson played 17 games, it's not a guarantee the Browns would make the playoffs. Do I think they would? Definitely. Is it a guarantee? No, because the division's tough and the conference is really tough. And there are going to be really good teams and really good quarterbacks that don't make it. So the more games Deshaun Watson misses, the harder it will be for the Browns to make the playoffs. That's pretty obvious. Now, they are fortunate that, at least on paper, they have a pretty favorable schedule early in the season. Right? They, if you look at their early season schedule, I think yesterday on the show I said that they don't play any playoff teams in the first 6 games, which I was wrong. The Patriots did make the playoffs. I guess I just don't think of them as a playoff team because I don't buy that they're that good, and I don't think they'll make the playoffs this year. But technically, I was wrong. Not technically, I was wrong. Factually, I was wrong. The Panthers are at best average. The Jets are at best average. The Steelers are, in my opinion, at best average. The Falcons are a bad team. The Chargers are a good team, and the Patriots are an average team. That's what you play in the first 6 weeks. So with Jacoby Brissett 6 weeks, you're in good shape to keep afloat. Week 7 and 8, things get much tougher. If he misses those 2 games, it's a much bigger deal. You've got the Ravens on the road and the Bengals at home. That Monday Night Football is going to be just bananas in Cleveland. It's going to be crazy. It's Halloween night, Bengals-Browns, Week 8. I mean, I know a lot of you are not going to believe this, but I want Deshaun Watson to play in that game. I want him to play as many games as possible. I hope he doesn't get suspended at all. I doubt that's going to happen. I've been saying 8 all along. I do think there's a chance it's going to be less than that. And if it's 6 or less, that makes a huge difference because I think Jacoby Brissett can definitely go 3-3 and maybe even better than that with the talent he's got around them in the first 6 games. But it's hard to predict the record for the Browns until we know, and obviously we don't. Obviously, the biggest challenge, well, not obviously. I think the biggest challenge for the Browns in this division is the Bengals. I think there's a lot of people think it's the Ravens. I think the Ravens, listen, all 3 teams are good. All 3 teams will be competitive. All 3 teams have a good chance to go to the playoffs if Deshaun Watson plays the majority of games. It's a tricky division. We talked about the AFC West. All 4 teams are really good. We know the Bills are excellent. That's 8 teams right there. Tennessee should still be solid. And same thing with New England and Miami. Those are decent teams. Decent. Pittsburgh's not going to be terrible. And Indy's not going to be terrible. Again, you're talking about only 3 teams in the AFC. The Jags, the Texans, and the Jets are probably the only 3 teams out of the 16 in the AFC that you can't make a case for them being around like a 9-win team or better. You can make a case for the other 13 teams. Those 3, no. Even Pittsburgh. And I don't think Pittsburgh's going to win 9 games. But you can make a case for it. They did it last year. They couldn't get worse quarterback play than they played last year. They've got a great coach. They do have talent. I think they're going to be under 500 because I think they're probably one of the bottom 4 or 5 teams in the conference. But if the Steelers are the 4th worst team in the AFC, I mean, that tells you how good the AFC is because they're not a bad team. It's going to make it very challenging for all involved. All right. Going to take one more break. When we come back, I want to get to the Guardians and their loss to the White Sox in an ugly game. And then I got some personal stuff that I want to talk about coming up next. That's all right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull. Folks, betonline.net is your number 1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments. And betonline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season and every season. It's the fastest and easiest way to check on all your favorite sporting events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. Bet online, where the game starts. So we know that the Guardians have been playing terrible baseball. They had lost 14 of 19. They did win the first 2 games of the series with the White Sox, but now they've dropped 2 in a row to Chicago. So they ended up splitting the 4-game series, and with 4 games to go before the All-Star break, they are under 500 with a 4-game series against the Tigers. Now, remember, they got swept by the Tigers last week in Detroit. It was a hideous series. Hideous. They lost the last 2 games of that series by a combined 13 runs. The closest they were was in 2 runs of that game. They then lost 2 out of 3 to the Royals, and now, as I mentioned, they split 4 with the White Sox. So hopefully they can win at least 3 out of 4 here and finish the first half over 500. White Sox are only a half game back. Lucas Giolito, who's been awful this year, pitched great against the Guardians yesterday. And if the Guardians are going to do something, they've got, most importantly, listen, I still think they could use another pitcher. Aaron Savali left the game yesterday. We don't know what his status is. He hasn't been very good. He's been better lately. He only pitched 1 inning. I can't really talk about yesterday. He didn't give up a run. But they are desperate for bats. The offense has gone ice cold for the past 3 weeks. Outside of a couple of games, they have not scored runs here. And even Jose Ramirez has struggled of late. And as he goes, kind of the team goes. Franmil Reyes, who's been a little better, is still struggling. Owen Miller's been absolutely awful of late. They're getting no production out of catcher. We're getting no production. I know Straw had a couple of decent games, but overall, no production. They were 5 for 32 at the plate last night with 2 extra base hits, 2 doubles, lack of clutch hitting. The Guardians were 0 for 12 with runners in scoring position yesterday. One other thing on the Guardians, it may be time to send Sam Hentges down to the minors. The guy's been terrible lately. He's given up runs in 4 appearances in a row and 6 of the last 7. I know he pitched well earlier, and I know they don't have a ton of great options. I certainly don't. I can't put him in any kind of close game, big spot right now. And yesterday was tricky. I can't, blame Francona for that. Your starting pitcher leaves at the end of the first inning. He's hurt. You're going bullpen the rest of the way. It's all hands on deck. I get it. But if you're not going to send Hentges down right now, which they probably won't, because he's really out of whack at the moment. He's been wild. And anyway, you can't, going forward, again, I know yesterday was an extreme circumstance, but going forward here, Hentges can't pitch in a big spot. It's that simple. He can't be trusted. He's given up 6. He's given up runs in 6 of his last 7 appearances and 4 in a row. Good to see more Eli Morgan get back on track because he has struggled of late too. Now he was even, he had been dominant for so long, but he has struggled a little bit lately, allowing some runs. He had 2 perfect innings yesterday, and even Clase got in the game. And again, Clase now at this point is one of the most reliable closers in baseball. So they've got that going. But if this team wants to compete, and they're only, I think, 3 games out of a wild card, 4.5 out of the division, they're still right there. They've got to get some bats. Will this team spend money to get bats? Because the lineup is just not good enough. Nolan Jones got on base again yesterday. I like seeing what they got from him. I'm good with him out there. I want to see him play. I want to see him play every day. But the team needs some help. Can't just go on like this. I know, listen, there's going to be ups and downs. We've talked about this a million times. Lots of peaks and valleys to this season. Young team, inexperienced. You got to expect it. They'll get hot again, even with the current bunch. Maybe it starts these 4-game series with the Tigers. Maybe it starts right after the break. Maybe it starts in August. I don't know. But the trade deadline is like 2.5 weeks away. And I don't want to see the team give up on this season. Let's go. They've got to get it. I really would love to see them get a catcher. I've been pounding the table for Wilson Contreras. I doubt they will do it at this point when they're under 500. I'm guessing they're not going to trade for a rental. Okay, don't do it. Well, then go get Murphy from was it Tom Murphy from Seattle. Go get I'm forgetting his name. Anyway, go get a catcher that's got some control. A catcher that can hit. Listen, there are not a ton of good hitting catchers, but Hedges and Maley, they can't hit at all. At all. And no offense to those guys, and I'd be happy to have either one of them on the show. I mean, I don't mean to be mean about it. They're major league players, but they're both backup catchers. They're not, to me, neither one's a starting catcher in Major League Baseball. All right, I want to end today's show on a personal note. For those of you who have known me since I moved to Cleveland, and I will be celebrating my 11-year anniversary of moving to Cleveland in about 5 weeks. August 18th, 2011 was the day I moved to Cleveland. I made my on-air debut with my buddy Dustin Fox on the Bull and Fox show on August 29th of 2011. And we've done 45 Ultimate Cleveland Sports shows so far. I've been on 44 of them, heading into Thursday's show. And if you've known me this long, if you've been a fan or if you hate me, whatever, if you've listened and now watch, you know that I have struggled to get healthy. And I have focused on it from a weight loss standpoint, including more. I've talked about it on the air a lot. I was tweeting my weight losses and gains. We've done this weight loss challenge on the air, and I want to say that, I have really been struggling. Obviously, I've not dropped any weight over the last month or so. And for all of you out there who are like me, who have struggled, there's a lot of fat people out there. I'm one of them. Okay, I'm not. It's so weird to me. I went into a store. I'm not going to say what the store is, but I went into a store a few months ago that sells clothes for big people, for fat people, and tall people. And I went in there, and folks who know me know I'm self-deprecating about my weight and my size, right? So I went into the store and I said, hey, how come you got no clothes for short fat people? I said, you got a lot of clothes for tall fat people and for tall skinny people, but you don't really have a lot for short fat people. And the person who was working there, who was skinny, says to me, you shouldn't fat shame. And I'm thinking, what? You're skinny? I'm fat? I'm talking about myself, and you're saying I shouldn't fat shame? I think that's the problem. First of all, I'm not shaming anybody. I'm talking about myself. I'm comfortable with who I am. Now, do I want to feel better physically? Of course. But I love myself, and I'm proud of myself, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished in life, and my weight doesn't define me as a person. So I can have fun with it, even if I know I want to be healthier. And I had a fantastic appointment yesterday with a nutritionist. Shout out to Jen. And it was really eye-opening. And I'm not going to get into the details of it, but it made me look at my what's the term? What am I looking? My relationship with food. I think that's a good way to put it. In a whole different way that I've never looked at it before in 51 years on this planet. And I think it's the first step to help me feel better physically. I got a lot of work ahead of me, both physically and mentally. And I hope you'll all, be patient with me and realize with other people in your life that just because someone's fat doesn't make them a bad person or a lazy person or a sloppy person. There's a lot of things that go into it. So if you're out there, if you're struggling with your weight, you're struggling with how you feel, don't be ashamed of who you are. You're not lazy. Hang in there and think about ways to get help. Seeing a nutritionist for me was really big, or I think it will be. I've got a lot of work to do. Anyway, I'm here for you if you need someone to talk to, and I mean that. That's it for today's edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull. I'll be back again on Friday, of course. Make sure you watch the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show streaming live on YouTube from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. every weekday. Going to be another fun show today I'm excited about. Love doing the show. I'm having the time of my life. This is the happiest I've been in a very long time. I'm really enjoying doing the show and doing the podcast, and I'm just having such a ball, I got to tell you. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, of course, please. If you don't already, you probably do if you're listening to this. But please do it. There you go, Adam the Bull on Twitter. Check out my website, adamthebull.com. I'm happy to make Cameo videos for you. Check out my profile on Cameo. Also, check out the Locked On Browns podcast with my guy G. Bush and Jeff Lloyd as well. We will talk to you, or I will talk to you tomorrow right here on the Bullpen with Adam the Bull. Have a great day, everybody.